I was born into a family with a long and convoluted history of favoritism, a dynamic that would shape not only my early years but also reverberate through my adult life. From a very young age, it became clear that my parents had a clear favorite, my younger sister Amy. Although I was the firstborn son, at 28 years old now, Amy, who is 25, was always held in a higher regard by our parents, especially our father. This disparity was evident even in our earliest childhood memories and continued to intensify as we grew older. The seeds of this inequity were sown long before we fully understood what was happening. I remember vividly a birthday from my early childhood that would come to symbolize the unspoken favoritism that defined our family. When I was 5 years old, my birthday was a modest affair, a simple family supper accompanied by a store-bought cake. In stark contrast, when Amy turned 2 that same year, our parents spared no expense. Her celebration was extravagant. Professional face painters, a bouncy castle, and even a petting zoo were arranged to make her day memorable. These early differences not only set the stage for our familial dynamics, but also laid the groundwork for how I would be treated in the years that followed. As we moved into our school years, the discrepancies between Amy and me became increasingly evident. At school, my efforts and accomplishments were often met with indifference by our parents, while Amy's less impressive feats were celebrated lavishly. I recall saving for months, diligently putting aside every spare cent of my allowance to buy a new bicycle when I was 10. Yet, when Amy expressed her own desire for a bike at the same time, her request was met with immediate indulgence. Rather than taking the opportunity to explain the value of saving or the concept of waiting for one's turn, our parents, particularly my father, swiftly purchased for her an even better bicycle than the one I had worked so hard to obtain. This pattern of partiality extended into every area of our lives, including school performances and academic achievements. In 4th grade, I was cast in a major role in the school play, a role I prepared for with unbridled enthusiasm and countless hours of rehearsal. I had looked forward to my parents watching me on stage with pride. However, on the evening of the performance, they arrived an hour late and missed my pivotal scene. Instead of sharing in my excitement or celebrating my accomplishment, they were busy consoling Amy, who had complained of a minor stomachache that evening. Their preoccupation with Amy was not an isolated incident. It was a recurring theme that made it seem as though every success of mine was eclipsed by her presence. Academically, I had always strived for excellence. I joined the math club, earned straight A's in middle school, and even secured first place in a regional science fair. Each time I reached a milestone, my accomplishments went largely unnoticed by my parents. In contrast, Amy was rewarded even for modest achievements, receiving celebratory dinners, new phones, and other tokens of praise for scores that did not even measure up to mine. These repeated instances of preferential treatment left an indelible mark on my self-esteem, fostering feelings of inadequacy and prompting an internal battle with anxiety and despair that would continue into my early adult years. High school was a period marked by even greater challenges. Determined to win the approval of my parents, I immersed myself in extracurricular activities while maintaining a perfect 4.0 GPA. I served as the editor of the school newspaper and was elected captain of the debate team. In contrast, Amy's academic performance was lackluster. Her grades hovered around the average mark, and she spent much of her time socializing rather than engaging in scholastic pursuits. Yet, whenever she did something that fell even marginally short of perfection, our parents were quick to praise her efforts. One of the most significant moments in my academic life occurred during my junior year of college. I was selected as one of 2 applicants from my university to attend a prestigious summer program at Harvard. This honor was a testament to the years of hard work and dedication I had invested in my education. I remember the pride I felt, the sense of accomplishment that came from achieving something truly significant. However, when I shared the news with my family over supper, my father's reaction was not one of pride or encouragement. Instead, he grumbled and quickly shifted the conversation to Amy's upcoming dancing performance. My mother offered only a perfunctory acknowledgement, "That's nice," before swiftly moving on. On the day I was scheduled to leave for Harvard, I was left stranded because my parents, desiring to attend Amy's performance, refused to take me to the airport. I had to rely on the kindness of a friend's parents for a ride. Each instance of neglect and disregard for my achievements compounded the feelings of bitterness and betrayal that I would carry for years. The college application process itself was another arena where the bias was painfully clear. I devoted months to perfecting my essays, engaging in numerous extracurricular activities, and preparing rigorously for standardized tests. As a result, I was accepted into several elite colleges and even received a sizable scholarship to my dream institution. When I announced this success at dinner, my parents' reaction was underwhelming at best, a dismissive, "That's good," followed by a cautionary reminder not to let it go to my head. They reminded me to remember us when you become a big shot. Meanwhile, when Amy barely managed to pass high school and decided against attending college, our parents embraced her decision with enthusiasm. They admired her for knowing herself, and for defying societal expectations, even going so far as to purchase her a car as a graduation gift. These glaring inconsistencies between their treatment of us sowed the seeds for a lifetime of internal conflict and emotional turmoil. After years of enduring this familial imbalance, I eventually managed to forge a path for myself. By the time I completed college with honors, I had secured a stable job in finance and even purchased my own house by the age of 27. Despite these personal successes, the unresolved issue of my parents' favoritism continued to cast a long shadow over my life. The dramatic turning point came with the passing of my paternal grandfather, a man who had risen from humble beginnings to become a successful businessman, and who had always believed in fairness and equality among his descendants. In his final will and testament, my grandfather decreed that his estate was to be divided equally among his grandchildren, including me, Amy, and our cousins, as well as among his children, including my father and his siblings. My share of the bequest was substantial, roughly $500,000, a sum that could help me invest in my future, pay off education loans, and even set the stage for launching my own company someday. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to feel hope that this unexpected windfall might be the means to turn my life around and secure a better future. However, what began as a moment of quiet joy soon transformed into a storm of family drama. Shortly after the will was read, my parents became visibly agitated. They pulled me aside and expressed their conviction that the distribution was unjust. According to their account, Amy, who at that time still lived in our parents' basement and worked part-time at a coffee shop, deserved the money far more than I did. Their argument was laden with references to every small instance in our past where they believed they had helped me, paying for my medically necessary braces, supplying me with school supplies, and even the modest decision to allow me to live at home during college. Yet they conveniently neglected to mention the lavish gifts they had showered on Amy throughout her life, including the car and other expensive indulgences. I tried to remain calm and rational, reminding them that the inheritance was my grandfather's final wish, a wish he had stated clearly in his will. I argued that my parents had no right to try to reinterpret or reassign his legacy. My refusal to acquiesce to their demands was met with a barrage of guilt-tripping accusations. They labeled me unappreciative and selfish, dredging up past favors and sacrifices as evidence of their unceasing support. My father recounted every minor expense he had incurred on my behalf, while conveniently overlooking the myriad ways he had catered to Amy's whims. The situation escalated further when my father, acting as one of the executors of my grandfather's will, took it upon himself to interpret my grandfather's intentions. Alongside Amy's own inheritance, which he was managing separately, he declared that he would adjust the distribution to favor Amy by allotting her my entire portion. His justification was that my grandfather, had he known of our unique family situation, would have made a different choice. I was left in shock and disbelief at the blatant manipulation of my grandfather's clear instructions. Feeling cornered and betrayed, I tried once more to reason with my parents, but they would not listen. My mother accused me of speaking ill of the deceased, insinuating that my criticism implied that my grandfather would have disapproved of her intentions. I recalled fond memories of my grandfather, who had always encouraged my academic and career ambitions, and tried to remind my parents that he had been an ardent supporter of equality among his grandchildren. But they dismissed my recollections as misinterpretations. They maintained that my grandfather had privately expressed concerns about Amy's future, and had desired to ensure that she was taken care of. When I asked why he had not formalized this wish in his will, my parents offered no satisfying explanation. Amy, caught in the middle of this familial tug-of-war, remained largely silent. When I attempted to speak with her privately, she was reticent and unwilling to break from the narrative that our parents had long instilled in her, that they knew best. Her only response was a nonchalant, "Mom and Dad know best." Her reluctance to challenge our parents, even in the face of clear inequity, spoke volumes about the depth of the conditioning she had undergone over the years. Desperate for clarity and validation, I reached out to my paternal grandmother, my grandfather's widow, for an explanation. What I received was a powerful rebuttal to my parents' arguments. Enraged, she informed me that my parents had no authority to alter my grandfather's will. She revealed that, several years prior, my parents had once asked my grandfather to revise his will in favor of Amy. My grandfather had firmly rejected the request, stating that all his grandchildren were to be treated equally. In fact, he had even included a stipulation in his will. Anyone who challenged the equitable distribution would forfeit their portion entirely. Armed with this new information, I confronted my parents about their earlier attempt to manipulate my grandfather's intentions. Their reaction was one of startled defensiveness. They claimed that their actions were motivated solely by concern for Amy's future. In a desperate bid to salvage their narrative, Amy herself even supported my father's arguments, though I could clearly see the guilt etched on their faces. The situation had reached a boiling point, and the manipulative measures my father had initiated were met with a swift counterattack from the extended family. My grandmother, with the assistance of my father's siblings and the family attorney, moved decisively to halt my father's scheme. Together, they ensured that the will would be carried out exactly as my grandfather had intended. Faced with overwhelming legal and familial opposition, my parents had no choice but to back down, though not without levying accusations that I had fractured the family by involving outsiders. In the wake of these events, the family was divided. My parents, feeling betrayed and hurt by what they perceived as a rebellion against their wishes, threatened to cut off all communication with me. My father went so far as to suggest that I would not be welcome in the family home if I accepted my rightful inheritance. In a particularly painful moment, my mother declared that my acceptance of the money signified that I had never truly loved them, that I was motivated solely by profit rather than familial affection. The fallout from the inheritance controversy was both profound and far-reaching. Extended family members took sides in the dispute. Some cousins, having long been aware of the favoritism and the unfair treatment I had endured, voiced their support for my stance, applauding my decision to stand up for myself. Others, however, counseled that I should have conceded to my parents' demands in order to preserve family harmony. My father's siblings, for their part, were firmly on my side, a solidarity that further strained the relationship with my parents. Family gatherings became fraught with tension, and I soon found myself avoiding the monthly family meals in order to escape the cold stares, glares, and unspoken accusations that had become all too common. During one particularly distressing family gathering, the situation reached an almost unbearable level of confrontation. My parents, who had arrived unannounced at an event hosted by my aunt, began to make a scene. They shouted accusations, claiming that I had taken away from Amy and had corrupted my grandmother. My father's outburst was especially bitter, as he insisted that I had ruined cherished memories, while my mother, in a moment of raw emotion, flung an old family photo album at my feet. The altercation was so intense that several relatives had to intervene to calm the situation, and my parents eventually left, leaving behind a trail of emotional scars that would take years to heal. In the midst of the family turmoil, I took decisive action. Recognizing that my rights under my grandfather's will were non-negotiable, I consulted my own attorney. After reviewing the case, my attorney confirmed that the will was legally binding and that my father's attempt to alter the distribution was not only illegal but also a gross violation of my grandfather's final wishes. With the legal backing in hand, I prepared for the possibility of court action. However, thanks to the intervention of my grandmother and the support of my father's siblings, the matter was resolved without the need for lengthy litigation. Over the course of several weeks, filled with tense meetings, furious phone calls, and the threat of further legal challenges, the situation was brought under control. My entire inheritance was secured, and the will was executed exactly as my grandfather had decreed. As a consequence of his manipulative actions, my father was removed from his role as an executor of the will. Despite this legal victory, the emotional and familial fallout continued to take its toll. My parents doubled down on their criticisms, accusing me of greed and neglect for my sister. They even went as far as to allege that I had coerced my grandfather into awarding me the money, a claim that most of the extended family quickly saw through. Nevertheless, the damage to my relationship with my parents was profound. They insisted that I had broken the family apart by involving outsiders in what they believed should have been an in-house matter. My mother, in tears, lamented that I had split the family, while my father's hostility remained unabated. In the midst of the chaos, a surprising change began to take shape, a transformation that touched not only me but also my sister Amy. Although long conditioned to depend entirely on our parents for emotional support and decision-making, Amy eventually began to see the toll that our parents' favoritism had taken on her life. In a rare moment of vulnerability, she confessed to me that she felt conflicted about our family dynamic. She admitted that, despite all the advantages she had received, being the golden child was not as wonderful as it appeared. She recounted times when she had yearned to forge her own path, to make decisions independent of our parents' constant interference. Our conversation was filled with raw emotion and painful recollections of a childhood spent in the shadow of favoritism. For the first time, we began to reconnect on a deeper, more honest level. This breakthrough in our sibling relationship was not instantaneous, but it marked the beginning of a slow and tentative process of healing. Amy resolved to take charge of her own life. In a move that shocked everyone in the family, she declared her intention to pay for her college education using her own resources. She enrolled at a local community college with the plan to eventually transfer to a four-year institution. This decision, though met with stunned silence and disapproval from our parents, signified a turning point in her life. For the first time, Amy was asserting her independence and challenging the long-standing narrative that had been imposed upon her by our parents. Meanwhile, I began to make thoughtful and deliberate decisions regarding the future use of my inheritance. With the financial freedom that the windfall provided, I paid off my college loans and established a diversified investment portfolio under the guidance of a financial advisor. I even started entertaining the idea of launching my own company one day, a venture that might one day provide opportunities for others who had experienced similar familial challenges. More than the monetary benefits, however, the inheritance represented a hard-won victory in asserting my rights and reclaiming my sense of self-worth. The legal battle and the subsequent fallout had taken a significant emotional toll on me. The family drama, which had been a recurring theme throughout my life, reawakened old wounds and reignited long-suppressed feelings of anxiety. In response, I returned to therapy, a decision that allowed me to confront the lasting impact of my parents' favoritism and begin the long process of healing. With the help of a compassionate therapist, I learned to validate myself independently, setting healthy boundaries and ultimately refusing to allow the opinions and expectations of others, especially those of my parents, to dictate my self-worth. As the dust began to settle, the extended family's dynamics also underwent a remarkable transformation. Many of my cousins, who had long recognized the unfairness of our family's treatment, rallied around me. Together, we initiated a monthly cousins gathering, a chance to reconnect, share experiences, and support one another in a family environment free of the drama that had long been dictated by the older generations. These gatherings provided a refreshing counterpoint to the tension that still existed with my parents, and allowed me to forge stronger bonds with relatives who truly valued fairness and mutual support. In a parallel development, my grandmother emerged as an indispensable mediator and pillar of strength. Her steadfast support and willingness to recount stories of my grandfather's egalitarian philosophy provided not only clarity but also a sense of justice that helped restore my faith in fairness. She even organized a separate family gathering, one that excluded my parents, where she laid out a detailed account of the years of partiality and favoritism I had endured. The event, though emotionally charged, allowed many family members to finally acknowledge the truth of my experiences, lending me a sense of vindication that I had long sought. The ripple effects of these changes extended even into my professional life. The family strife, combined with the introspection and growth fostered by therapy, ignited within me a passion for supporting others who had suffered from similar familial dysfunction. I began to explore the possibility of returning to school to specialize in family therapy, with a focus on adult children of emotionally immature parents. This newfound calling resonated deeply with me. In my spare time, I volunteered at a local youth facility, offering the kind of encouragement and support that I had craved as a child. I also started planning a community center that would offer reasonably priced mental health services and financial literacy seminars, a project fueled by both personal experience and a genuine desire to help others break free from cycles of emotional neglect. In an almost poetic turn of events, my relationship with Amy continued to improve. We established a Siblings Day, once a month, a dedicated time for the two of us to engage in activities free from the influence of our parents. Our recent hiking and picnic outing was perhaps our most relaxed and genuine interaction in years, a moment that allowed us to reconnect on our own terms and reaffirm our commitment to rebuilding our bond. This positive development, however, came at a cost. Our parents, particularly my father, reacted harshly to our growing independence. My father, who had long maintained a rigid stance that he had done nothing wrong, remained obstinate. He refused to even share the same room with me at family events and continued to express his discontent in cold, dismissive tones. Nonetheless, I was determined not to allow his resistance to derail the progress I had made. Looking back on the tumultuous events of the past several years, I have come to appreciate the many lessons that this ordeal has taught me. I have learned the importance of standing up for myself, even when it means confronting deeply ingrained familial expectations and facing the possibility of isolation from those who were once so dear to me. I have also come to understand that my self-worth is not defined by my parents' partial treatment, but by my own achievements, my resilience in the face of adversity, and my commitment to fairness and justice. The process of healing has not been linear, and there remain moments when the weight of past hurts brings on anxiety attacks reminiscent of my early struggles. Nonetheless, every day I work diligently to establish and maintain healthy boundaries. I have learned that it is not only acceptable but necessary to prioritize my mental health and personal well-being above all else, even if doing so disrupts long-held family traditions or expectations. I now firmly believe that the family we choose for ourselves can be as meaningful, if not more so, than the one into which we were born. Today, I continue to navigate the complex and often fraught dynamics of my family. My mother has begun to acknowledge the damaging effects of her favoritism and is actively engaged in therapy to address her own issues. We have had several one-on-one lunches, where we have discussed our shared past and the need for a new way forward, one built on honesty, mutual respect, and understanding. Although these conversations have been challenging, they have also provided a glimmer of hope that a more equitable future might be possible. My father, on the other hand, remains largely resistant to change. He insists that he has done nothing wrong and that Amy and I should be grateful for the support we received throughout our lives. His refusal to recognize his own shortcomings continues to create a rift between us. Yet even as I acknowledge this painful reality, I am learning to let go of the need to control his reactions or force him to see things differently. In the end, I have come to understand that my value is intrinsic and independent of his approval. The inheritance that once symbolized the culmination of my grandfather's lifelong belief in fairness has now become a powerful tool for change. I have used it to not only secure my financial future but also to invest in my personal growth and professional development. With a diversified investment portfolio and the possibility of launching my own venture, I feel a sense of empowerment that had long been elusive. More importantly, I have also allocated funds toward therapy, both for myself and for Amy, as we continue our journey toward healing from the emotional neglect that defined our childhood. One of the most profound realizations I have come to is that the process of healing and reclaiming one's identity is both arduous and deeply rewarding. I have discovered a reservoir of inner strength that has allowed me to redefine what it means to be a successful, independent individual. This journey, though marked by painful recollections of favoritism and neglect, has ultimately led me to a place of self-acceptance and resolve. I now approach life with a renewed commitment to fairness, not only for myself but also for those who have been silenced or overlooked by systems of bias. In sharing this story, I hope to reach out to anyone who has ever felt diminished by the expectations or preferences of their family. It is not uncommon to feel isolated or undervalued when favoritism is at play. However, I want to emphasize that you deserve to be treated fairly and with respect. Do not let anyone, no matter how close they may be, make you feel guilty for asserting your right to happiness, success, or even a rightful inheritance. Even when such assertions create controversy, it is both reasonable and necessary to stand up for yourself. If you find yourself caught in similar familial dynamics, consider seeking professional guidance. Whether it is through therapy, legal counsel, or supportive community networks, there is help available to empower you to reclaim your life and establish boundaries that honor your worth. Surround yourself with those who understand your journey, and do not hesitate to forge a new path, even if it means challenging the status quo within your family. As I reflect on my journey, from a childhood overshadowed by favoritism, through years of emotional and legal turmoil, to the present day where I stand empowered by self-knowledge, I realize that the path forward is one of deliberate choice and determined action. I have chosen not to let my parents' partiality define my future. Instead, I am forging a new identity, one that is built on resilience, fairness, and the unwavering belief that every individual deserves the chance to succeed on their own terms. The inheritance that I fought so hard to secure is more than just a sum of money. It represents the culmination of a lifelong struggle for recognition and justice. It symbolizes the victory of fairness over manipulation, and it serves as a reminder that our true value lies not in the accolades bestowed by others, but in our ability to stand up for ourselves and pursue our dreams with integrity and courage. Today, as I look to the future, I am excited by the possibilities that lie ahead. I am considering furthering my education in family therapy, a field in which I hope to help others break free from cycles of favoritism and emotional neglect. I am exploring new business ventures that align with my passion for mental health and financial literacy, and I continue to nurture the slowly healing bonds with my sister Amy. Together, we are rebuilding our relationship on a foundation of mutual support, honesty, and the recognition that our individual worth is defined by our own actions and aspirations, not by the expectations imposed upon us by others. In sharing my story, I extend my deepest gratitude to everyone who offered support and guidance during those trying times. Your words of encouragement helped me stay strong in moments when I felt utterly alone. I now stand at the threshold of a new chapter in my life, one where I have reclaimed my narrative, set healthy boundaries, and begun to write a future defined by self-determination and compassion. May my journey serve as a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what is right, even when it means confronting painful truths and challenging long-standing familial patterns. Remember, your value is inherent, and you are deserving of a life marked by fairness, respect, and the freedom to pursue your dreams without guilt or compromise. Thank you for taking the time to read this account of my life. If you have not already, I encourage you to seek out supportive communities, professional guidance, and above all, the courage to assert your rightful place in the world. The road may be long and fraught with challenges, but every step taken in pursuit of fairness and self-respect is a victory in itself. This retelling captures the intricate details of my family's long history of favoritism, the deep emotional impact it has had on my life, the dramatic events surrounding my inheritance, and the eventual steps I took to reclaim my independence and redefine my future. It is my hope that in sharing this story, others facing similar challenges may find inspiration to stand up for themselves and build a life that reflects their true worth.